Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Story Deep Dive. This is a podcast where two book coaches, editors, and it's not most importantly, but I think low-key most importantly, besties, discuss books not as readers, but as writers to draw inspiration from great books and have plenty of laughs along the way. So today we are going to talk about characters in Beautifully Cruel, and really it's, mostly Liam and Tru. They're the characters who are at the forefront. Everyone else is kind of more in the background. But before we dive into our characters, Dana, I would love to know what's happening over at Danger Tales, because you've got some exciting stuff going on over there. You always have exciting stuff. I say that, but you always have exciting stuff. I universally think that whatever you're doing is interesting and exciting. Because I'm your friend. I'm just pumped about everything you're doing all the time.
Listen, I'll take it. I don't know how exciting it is, but I will take it. I try my absolute best in my world and in the communities and with clients to sort of have some breathing room in July and August, or really at the end of June into July, just because most people are traveling. We have people that are working on stuff after going through boot camp. And so it's just one of those things of we're being low key. And it also means that I get this opportunity to lean into my writing projects. So it's that's how I do this yin and yang thing. It's the balance of it all, right? And so we are working on we're doing some holiday writing. So working on Christmas stories for the end of the year. And then we're also working on our...
so we're not working on them at the end of November when they're due at the beginning of December.
Listen, it is the weirdest thing to be writing about a snowy Christmas when it is in the triple digits outside, okay?
Sitting just directly under the AC vent, think cold thoughts, think cold thoughts. That's what I'm doing anyway, whether or not I'm writing about Christmas. I'm just picture yourself in the snow.
Listen, as a one who is always cold, I'm it's whatevs, right? It's whatever.
It's always Christmas for me because it's always cold.
It's always cold. But the crazy part is I am always cold, therefore I don't like the cold climate, going into cold areas, because I'm super cold.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, it does not work. I've been thinking, how do y'all survive? Girl, I sound oh my God, I'll sound like a complainer. Because fun fact, when I used to travel, I love to go to different places, to go to conferences. And when I would go to places regularly, I would buy clothes there. Because I was convinced that their clothes, that their jeans are thicker than our Texas jeans. Because we don't get that cold. So anyways. Yeah.
Wait, really quick, I want to tell a brief story about one of the times that we stayed together. So we were at an event, and we used to go to events together, semi-regularly, and we would always stay together. If we were at the same event, we would stay together. And this event was, we were in Tennessee, which is north of where we are, and it was in winter time. It was February, I think. And we were staying at this Airbnb together, and it was the first night, and I was in my bedroom, and I was it's feeling really, I was oh my God, it's feeling really hot. I was just really starting to feel I'm sweating over here. What is going on? I go over to the thermostat. Y'all, Dana has set the heat. So the heater is running to maintain. It was 77 degrees. It was that heater was blasting. And I was I dropped by my room and I was hey, it's okay. I'm going to turn it down just a few degrees. I am on fire. So I'm going to take it down just a couple degrees just to even out. I was ready to open my window while I slept because it was
I forgot about that.
So high, and I was oh my God, it's 1,000 degrees.
In my house, I'm not allowed to touch the thermostat.
So we get to the Airbnb and you're sweet, sweet freedom.
Let's go.
If it's not a sauna, I'm not happy.
As snug as a bug in a rug. Listen.
Oh, man.
I don't get to touch it. So even when my husband be why don't you just change it? I do not trust. I don't trust the degrees. I don't trust knowing which one is the right one to pick because I'm always going to tilt to warmer. Always going to tilt to warmer. I would be like that and still have on fuzzy socks, a sweatshirt, and people would be like, "Are you
Which
anemic?"
you did.
No, I do.
Yes, in that, like, I came to the bedroom. You were in bed. You had like a hoodie on. You were all curled up under the covers while it's 77 degrees, and I was like, "What is going on? What is going on?"
We was like, "Are you having hot flashes?" She's like, "No, Dana, you just got it too hot in here. Listen,
I'm younger than you. No, I'm not having hot flashes.
I don't know why. I've always been that way. Always been cold natured.
Oh, my
always,
goodness.
always. And I'm bad because I'll even eat ice, and I love eating popsicles. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't
You're
make
just
sense.
like, I'm so cold, but this is so good.
It's so good. Oh my gosh. Listen, try to talk about me. But yes. And what about you, Miss Rachel? What you got going on in your neck of the woods?
You know, we are plugging along. So I talked last week about the fact that we are moving into outlining. So by this point, we're having our Q&A this upcoming week to talk about the previous 2 weeks. So trial by fire, my project is outlined. And that what it also means is that next month is going to be first draft time. So
How do you feel about that? You go whisper. How do you feel?
Maybe if I don't say it too loud, it won't sneak up on me. But so, I'm not placing, this expectation on my community. They kind of get to go at the pace that suits them. But if they're working alongside me and I am showing them the whole process, so that means I got to crank out that first draft in 1 month, baby. So who is going to be that Kermit the Frog meme where he's like typing like crazy? Me. I'm going to feel like Dana. I'm so excited. Again, we talked about this the other day. I was awake at 3 a.m. and I sent you a video message. And I was like, I said I want to be like you when I grow up. I was not meaning that I wake up at 3 a.m. This is not what I meant when I said that. And we're like teetering on, like, I did say I wanted to be like Dana when I grow up.
You did.
First draft in a month. And because it is on a deadline, I get to be Dana for a little bit. Let's see if I can handle it. And I know that
you can.
I can because I must. When you put me on a deadline, I will destroy worlds and do anything to hit a deadline because I am obsessive perfectionist. So you better believe whatever happens, there's going to be first draft at the end of this. But we are wrapping up outlining, so we're not there yet. It's not time, but it's coming. It's coming for me with great speed. And speaking of which, you just had a release, and you're kind of doing a little bit of like market stress testing on this new project. Tell me a little bit about that.
First of all, you got my cheeks hurting because you are so hilarious. I'm just going to be on standby. I just want to be a fly on the wall. Yes, I am going through the process. I've been telling you guys on and off about this sweet small town romance that kind of transitioned from cozy romance to sweet small town romance. And we are in the process of launching. And, the reality is, before you get ready to do this, you think about all the decisions you have made in your life, Okay, that
was not what I was saying. I was expecting, you think about all the decisions that you've made leading up to this moment, about your story structure and your cast. You were thinking about everything. I feel like, okay, I'm about to be here. I'm taking notes. I'm about to be in your shoes. You are thinking about every decision you made in your life that brought you to this moment.
Listen, one of the reasons why I absolutely love being an active writer as I am a coach, because it helps you to be very much able to relate to the woes that we go through to get the words on the page. And also that there are some things where just knowing it structurally and making the decision that that's what I'm actually going to do. Listen, y'all, if y'all don't know me, notice about me, I'm grown all day long. Listen, I'm going to just do what I'm going to do. I try my best. Listen, I try my best to be like, okay, Now, make sure it's market aligned. I like to be able to have the evidence to support my decisions, but there are some things I'm just like, I'm gonna just do it. And there are some aspects of that here. There are also some aspects of the story where it's about like wanting to see representation in an area where I really think could be a strong audience, but may not be because there's not a lot of representation there. And sometimes the reality is it could be there is no representation there because there's not a big enough audience. And sometimes there's not an audience because there's no representation. And so that can affect it as well. And so when I find myself up against that cusp, I really like to make sure that if at the end of the day, this is a story that I just absolutely love, it's going to do whatever it's going to do. And for me as a writer, I've learned what I needed to write, regardless of what happens on the other side. But yes, I'm at the point where, you know, we're testing in the market. We are in there and listen, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to speak it. They're going to love it. Okay. They're going to love it.
Yeah, they are.
And we're going to have more books in the series, and I'll be able to tell stories from this angle. I think ultimately what I've loved already is the fact that by the time, let me back up a few paces. I usually think in series. This book, for some reason, I did not. I don't know why. I don't know what happened. I just thought I'm going to write one book. It's going to stand alone, and then I'll be able to move on. That's not what happened. So that already threw threw a wrench in my plans. So I had to rework that. But what happened is the thing that usually happens with, and I came to this conclusion after I already had my first draft. Y'all listen, which is unheard of for me because I'm the plotter's plotter.
Yeah.
But what happened?
I love this. The surprise again. I know. You're like, no, ma'am, we don't love this. This was not according to plan. However, something about, and because I've watched this happen to you again, also with this is going to be a short fiction, and then you're like, no, it has to be full length, right? Like this is a thing that happens. But that is that thing of like when you sit down to draft, there's a little bit of magic that happens in the process of actually taking your plan and putting it into action. Sometimes that magic feels like dark magic. Evil magic that is set out to harm you.
Like, I did not sign up for this.
Sweet, wonderful magic.
And sometimes it's everything in between. Yes. Here, I will say that it was sweet magic because part of it was I was still wrestling with what my anchoring point was for me, the writer.
Yeah.
I felt like the story was locked in. I felt like the plot was locked in, but I needed something that just made me feel like, you know, I like to just talk to my stories. I like to feel like I know these people, etc. And it wasn't until I was working on some of the world building and shoring up some of the world building where it just clicked.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I got it. Now, whether or not it turns it into cozy or not, or not, it probably is a not, but whatever, pineapples, but whatever. So I had to come out, I sort of came up on this thing of like, this is my anchoring point for this series. Yeah, I love series. I love writing series. I love the fact that in romance that is sort of like the most easiest way to sort of build a following and to increase your earnings is to have a series that pulls people in and that has a great read through. And so once I figured out what that element was, other than the regular, like they're in the same location, because that's low hanging fruit. I really wanted something that felt a little more substantial. And once I found it, and it added a little bit of humor, and it added a little bit of just like sass to it, that was even better. I was like, okay, I'm here for this. But it also meant that I had to go back through a whopping, 100,000 word manuscript. Do
your manuscripts clock in under 100,000 anymore? Is that a thing? Like, except when, like, contractually required for a collaboration or something.
And
do they ever come under 100,000 anymore? Because seems like they always, they're just too juicy. They need all that space.
Well, that and will find that romance has scaled up.
It has,
Romance has scaled up.
book romance novels on average are getting longer or have gotten longer over time, which is super interesting to see that happening.
And so, yeah, it's right there. But I mean, at the end of the day, y'all know when I know. Shoot, I listen. I'm just like, it's done. Yeah. It's going out into the world. Had some amazing pre-orders, so we're gonna see. We're gonna see how it goes with the reviews, y'all. This is I'm listen. At the end of the day, this is when I feel like I think it was Jill Scott said, I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my shit. Okay, so don't get it twisted. Listen, I'm sensitive about my stuff. However, you got to respect the reader-writer relationship, and I'm still building that. And so the list is growing nicely. I'm excited about that. I think I've got like a little bit under 1,000 subscribers off of the lead magnet, so that's going good. So it's just, it's just honestly at the end of the day, it's part of the process. Yeah. And I feel like I don't really hit like my pocket for some. I would say 2 to 3 books. A complete series and then a book or so sometimes is really when I know, and that's what I'm still learning with this one, and that's a part of the whole market testing. So
okay, so I want to listen. All right, anybody who's listening, my writers, I'm gonna need you to stand up, sit up anyway, not stand up. If you, it doesn't matter. Anyway, sit up because I can't get my words right. Sit up and take notes for a moment, because there's some really important just nuggets of gold that I don't want anybody to miss in everything Dana just said. So I love this conversation hot on the heels of last week's conversation about finding out what works in the market. And sometimes you only kind of know once you've done it. You can plot it, you can kind of do the best, you can be intentional about what you're doing, set it up, and deliver to the best of your ability. And then that thing goes out in the market, and that's where you find out whether or not the readers are taking to it. And that's what gives you the information to know what worked for people, what didn't work for people, how is it being received by the audience that I have advertised to as well. So that's thing number 1, right? The thing has to go out. We gotta launch it, and then it sucks and it's uncomfortable. We gotta find out what happens. But if the audience isn't, if they're sort of like, if they're not crazy about it, it's also not the end of the world, because you can write more books, right? Mm-hmm. This is it, and it doesn't make it not scary, but this is a fact-finding mission as well, to release the book and get a sense for what are people looking for, how are they responding to it. You take that information into your next book. So that's thing number 1. But thing number 2, also pay attention to the fact that Dana, who has written a bazillion books, she's written many, many books under many, many pen names in many, many genres, just told you that she doesn't quite feel like she's hit the pocket of a particular pen name, hit a specific stride until a few books in. Complete a series and maybe even an extra book on top of that. That's anywhere between, we'll say, 3 to 4 books on average. So if you're writing your first book and you are not feeling like you have mastered your genre, or you are in your pocket, or you know exactly who you want to be as a writer, guess what? Even the pros need to settle in to a genre, to their niche, to the pocket that they're trying to operate in. Because I think that there's this mistake that writers make of thinking that my first book has to be, it's going to be perfect, it's going to be everything that I am as a writer. Nope, it's your first book. Brandon Sanderson, the prolific writer that he is, says it takes 5 books to figure yourself out. So if Brandon Sanderson can take 5 books, I think you can take 5 books too. I tell my clients this, I tell my community this, I tell every writer I come into contact with that I can, even if we're just on a consultation call, because I think people put so much pressure on themselves to perfect their voice, their art, their thing with their first book, that it puts so much pressure on that project that it makes it nearly impossible to even get the thing out. Because that's way too much weight to put on one novel, to do all of these things. And so you are going to write more books. So it is okay to find yourself along the way. So those are two, again, you just heard this from the mouth of someone who's written many, many books. So if she has permission, so do you.
I will also say that I would say the part of that caveat is I would say though those books should be released, not just written. If you don't and you just write them, you're still in your bubble.
Yeah.
And you're still in your bubble. And I will say this, even though I'm waiting, like you're almost like stress testing something, right? Like you're sort of waiting for that dynamic. I've had a very thorough, this is what I did. This is why I did it. Here are the decisions that I made. Here's some areas that I really want to look for with feedback. And this is outside of feedback of beta readers or our proofreader and editor and all of that. Like it's something about when something is out in the world. I think the other part is I always tell myself, like, I'm going to get mine, you better get yours. Meaning, by the time I let it go, that I got mine. I got mine. And I know what it is. And there may be things I already know, or I've already tested this thing, or I've already decided on X, Y, and Z. And so now it's really released so that, yes, I'm waiting. I'm going to get something from that feedback, but it's not soul crushing. Yeah. It's not like, oh my God, I'm waiting for them to tell me that I'm good. No, that's not what I'm waiting on. It's really about some of those areas where I could have gone this way or that way. I decided this for these reasons. You know, is that the same decision that I would make on the next book? Yeah. And so it helps to have that in mind, and it helps for me to have a preliminary of what the next book is going to be, so that I then know how to take that into what I'm doing. And so, Yep.
Oh, that's so good. So y'all just got a mini masterclass from a well-published author. So if you need to rewind,
still get nervous.
Take those notes. Yes.
I still get nervous. It does not go away. But I think it just means you care.
Yeah.
And sometimes you still can second guess things. I like, whenever I go back and forth, there can be research, then I just go with the thing that if this just flops, monetarily, not creatively, because I've already got mine. That's the got mine part, right? Yep. Then what did I learn? What am I learning through this process? And whenever I'm in those moments where it could go either or, I always go with a thing with my gut, so that I never want it to be that there is a flop and I went with a decision that someone else told me to do. Yeah. And then you don't know if that was the reason why, or so that's why when people say stuff, y'all, baby, what they say, like water off a duck's back. That's the name. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, it's you and your readers. People can say whatever they want to say because we don't know. None of this is not a science. Yeah. And so it's not a guarantee. So having as much fun as you can, writing the kind of stories and characters that you just love to experience and encounter and create, and then all the other is just, cherry on top or gravy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's and that's that's finding that gets at finding the balance between receiving reviews and the reception of your book as information about the decisions that you made versus letting other people's opinions shape you creatively, right? Like there's when you finding that line between this is information about how it performed in the market or how people felt about the decisions I made versus either tell me I'm good or bending over yourself and your creativity to whatever, because people said that it should be this thing or whatever. You find that balance of placing yourself in the market, getting that feedback, and not turning into something or somebody that you don't want to be just because other people say so,
And the reality is, if you created something that was market aligned, you already know a big chunk of that. Yeah. Unless you're just doing it in a bubble for real, well, then you are going to probably get the shock of your life. Right? I'm just going to keep it 100. But if you've already done some of the research, you already know some. Now it's about like, well, then how does the audience that I attract based upon my marketing, my packaging, my cover, my blurb, and how does it align with them? And is that the alignment that I intended?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the one, right? Like, what was it? What I intended, and did it was the outcome what I expected?
Yeah.
How was it better? How was it not? What can I do differently? And take that into the next book, and not all of it. If you are like me and you're in the throes of it, not all of it. You cannot aim to do all of the things all of the time when you're learning. Sometimes it's like, okay, I really would like to work on this, but this is my real focus. I want to have character growth, or I want to make sure my external plot is blah 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 blah, and then let those other things come as you get better.
Yeah.
Because you're always getting better.
So good. So good. All right. So, speaking of character growth, and that was my clumsy segue, we're going to talk about characters. So, before we dig into characters, Dana, will you hit us with a brief summary of Beautifully Cruel by J.T. Geissinger?
I will. Beautifully Cruel by J.T. Geissinger is a slow burn romantic suspense. I'm really going to say contemporary romance after our last episode that blends dark romance elements with emotional depth. The story follows Tru Sullivan, a law student and waitress whose world shifts after she's rescued by Liam Black, a silent, dangerous man with ties to the underworld. What begins as a 28-day arrangement turns into an intimate, high-stakes exploration of trust, control, and desire. With a focused plot, tight POV, and emotional intensity, it's a compelling study in how to write romance with simmering tension and layered character arcs.
Okay, perfect. So when we're talking about layered character arcs and that tension and our main male character and our main female characters, so we're going to really be focusing on Liam and Tru since they're at the very, very forefront of the story. What are some of the things generally that you kind of want to talk about when it comes to Liam and Tru?
I probably should have taken a little time to write this a little differently. I think because it really was just the two of them in this story, it's almost like everything is about them because the external plot wasn't a huge pusher. Like it's there, it is there, but it's not a huge, it wasn't a huge factor in my brain, I guess. So the first thing that I kind of want to talk about is them individually, which is I sort of get this feeling from Tru that potentially J.T. Geissinger was like, I am woman, hear me roar. And she created this character that has, like, that's full of these oxymorons that at some time I'm eye rolling over here. I'm like, okay, all right. Listen, I'm okay with Tru. I'm more here for Lim, but it's what is. I mean, that's not what you asked me, so I'm going to keep answering. So I think one of the things that I really learned from her is I like her as a character in general. I probably wanted to like her a little bit more if I was just being honest. And I think as an editor, there were areas where some of it clashes, almost like it felt forced. And I really don't think it had to be. I think some of the ways that they sort of merged together would have just been just fine without trying to force some of the things. The same for Lim. I personally really like Lim. I think he's one of the best since sliced bread. I think it was a really great character. But one of the things I want to talk about with him that I think may be a little bit of a rub, but it's some of the things that we like, which is he is this sort of morally gray character, but he was written as if he was a heroic character instead of an anti-heroic character. And I think that is one of the things that sort of can make it feel a little bit off, even if you can't put your finger on it. Mm-hmm. It's the thing that sort of is under the undercurrent. The last part of this, and we can talk about the pros and cons of that. The last part of this is one of the things that I love about them together as a unit is I love how they were layered. I always talk about this thing where I call it invisible tethers, where there's aspects about the characters that are beyond the surface that sort of pulls them together that they don't realize exist. And when they do, it's almost like, And I love that part of this story because I like looking for those things as an editor and as a reader of these things that sort of hint at fate bringing them together. And I think what it did is strengthen the two of them as a unit that helped to support where there were some things that were wobbly as individuals. So in the end, it just made for just a great story. And listen, y'all, I'm going to say all that and add this little bit of I'm just going to add this. Y'all going to get this part for free. If you're just going through and reading the story, you're not going to care about none of this. You're going to just read it. And so this is having read it a bunch of times, studying it with clients, talking about whether or not this is a true comp or not. Having those discussions is why I would pull out these elements. But as a whole, this is one of my favorite stories. You could probably even see it over my shoulder. Like, it's on my shelf. I own every single copy of it. Like, it is one of my favorites. But when we're talking about characters and building characters, there are some things and aspects about this that really could have been just a little bit better. And I think it would have landed even better. And so, yeah, that's what I have on my list. And I'm sure we're going to talk about much more as your points come in.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we're talking around the same thing since we're only really looking at two characters. I do want to talk a little bit about Liam as the fantasy that's kind of created around Liam, which is something that I was paying attention to when I was reading the story. Was like, okay, what is the fantasy at work here? And I think that will kind of also maybe make for a little bit of a nice conversation about Liam as alpha male. I'm pretty sure he's an alpha male. Okay,
girl, I'm pretty sure.
I struggle with understanding because, it seems like they're all alpha males, and so just understanding what are the. I'm looking for something a little more technical, which is it's my mind. Of what are the delineations? Is there anything besides an alpha male that's not a cinnamon roll? I just am So Liam, guys, definitively Liam's an alpha male. So now now I know. I was pretty sure, but I just didn't feel super confident because I just feel like I don't know. But I want to kind of start with, and this is kind of where you started as well, is Tru as a character. And this actually was a question that was prompted during our last episode when you kind of made a side comment about Tru, and I was like, ooh. There's tea here, and I want to find out what it is. So I just want to ask you, and I'm just going to ask you outright. Okay, Tru, the character, is she consistent? Do you find her inconsistent? Tell me about how she strikes you as a character.
In general, I like her. Specifically, I felt there are inconsistencies.
Okay.
That it just makes me roll my eyes. That I'm just I didn't even need to know that. If you could have just kept it pushing. I don't have any specific things. I don't, the whole thing of how he kept saying, and here it was, I thought you were shy. I'm usually a good judge of character, which I got that part. But then I just felt like there was aspects of, I'm gonna back up a hair. I get how you can be talkative and you can be eloquent and you can speak your mind and you can ask questions, tough questions, and still be an introvert. That's actually me, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That really is me. But I think sometimes communicating that on page, it doesn't feel as, it's harder to smooth out. And in this case, when the external plot wasn't as super strong and we are relying on that, then it makes it a little bit challenging to know where we're going with this thing. Now, because I wanted them to be together, listen, romance readers will forgive a multitude of sins if you bring the HEA with the thunder, okay? Yeah. And I think that she did that. But I do think that some of those things just didn't feel like they went together. I just felt like you didn't need all of that. I felt like the true nature of Tru was the parts that I loved. The fact that she went for a purpose, that she wasn't going to allow herself to just move across country for this guy and not get something from it, where she was a hard worker. The fact that she was from Texas, like, I loved all that. I loved the way that her parents named her. Like, I had loved all of that. Some of the, like, when she was fighting whether she wanted to be with him, I felt a lot of that, like, you're not gonna, girl, just hush. Go with the man.
I think we did get a little bit where it almost felt like we were padding the conflict in a way of, it was just this we sometimes got a little bit too much of the, like, I'm not gonna do it, but maybe I will. I'm not gonna do it, but maybe. And you're just like, I'm okay that you need to make a decision and you're wrestling over the decision, but we've done it. We go over and over it a few too many times where we're just like,
because you don't have the external. That's why.
So nothing else is happening in a way
Right.
where it's sort of just this, like, going around and around and around, and you're like,
yeah, and I think that there were some aspects of this that I felt like is not normal in dark romance, and this is not a dark romance, which is like part of the rub, which we will talk about a little bit. We talked about a little bit in the overview. It's like this rub of, in dark romance, you're meant to sort of to question this moral compass. And she sort of had a soapboxy feel to hers that felt a little pushy. Especially when Lim Black is like the mafia pope. You know what I'm saying? And so one of the things that I usually look for in these types of stories, if it was a true dark romance, and this is not, but if it was that normally what happens is the very thing that you might dislike about his morally grayness is the thing that actually saves the female character, right? It's the thing she needs to tap into. So therefore, it does make her question the aspect of the moral grayness of it or the morality of it, because that just saved me, right?
Yeah.
One of the stories, and we haven't read it, but I think it shows this really well, is what was it called? Nero. Some people don't like it because it does get really into some of the, like, dark will usually play with consent, and it will play with, certain crimes and things being on the page and all of that, and organized crime and all of that. But one of the things that it did really well was that he avenges her in a very real way.
Yeah.
And so therefore, like, for her to, like, turn up her nose at the fact that he is in organized crime and the leader of this organized crime group, when that's the reason why he was able to avenge you and to protect you, it's like, okay. So it felt a lot more clear cut. Like, and she didn't have a problem with it, but he had a problem with it. And I think that's the part here where it's this weird rub. And I think the rub is sort of permissible. Yeah, I have a example in my brain and I dare not share it on a recorded line, but it is permissible. I know. Don't worry about it.
You're gonna have to tell me later, because I'm like, I need I'm literally making a note to myself of, like, well, you can't say it on a recorded line, but you can say it on an unrecorded line, and that's what we'll do later.
And hope I don't forget, is the fact that the same things that she might wrestle with, he wrestles with. And I think that's what makes it feel okay. But I do feel like some of the moments of, and without having a spoiler alert, some of the things that she questions, he questions, right? But he has a sense of conviction about it because of his mission, if you will. And so I think overall, again, I like her. Listen, I think it's sort of painted as her being soft-spoken, but she's really not soft-spoken. I don't think she's soft-spoken at all. And what I did like about her was her gumption. I do like her sass. I do feel like it makes her relatable because she's a good friend, that she is very loyal, that she can take a crappy job and still make the best of it. She's a team player. And I think those are all the redeeming qualities that makes a character relatable. And I think this is a really great example that you can have someone that is not relatable to you as in an apples to apples. Yeah. Right? If I say she's not relatable because, well, she's a white woman and she's, I could say, well, but she is relatable because I understand law school. I understand, right? But I think she did a JT Geissinger, I believe she's a she, does a great job in making her relatable in a universal way,
Yeah.
right? That she is strong, she is independent, that she's working hard to do the right things, and that she's going about something that is a true challenge for her for the right reason after
Yeah.
coming from a really hard sort of personal experience. And
Yeah.
I think all of that sort of overshadows the rest, that you may not even see the rest unless you're really looking for it.
Yeah. And, this is just, and I don't want to, like, sit here and harp on a single aspect. But it was kind of occurring to me as I was listening to you talk and thinking back through the book of like, oh, you know what? We had this instance of conflating being shy with being introverted.
Yes.
And that was, and this is important, I think, for writers to recognize, like, introvert does not necessarily equal shy, because
Right.
the problem that we ran into was that she says that she's shy half a dozen times, but we only see her with people that she knows, and in which circumstances she doesn't look shy at all. She's nervous, like she babbles nervously, which happens when she meets Liam at the beginning. But that's also not necessarily, like, I don't equate that with being shy necessarily. It's just you get nervous and you babble. Okay, like that, that's probably happened to just about everybody. Like, that is a relatable experience on its own. And so what happened is we keep getting this, I'm shy, and everyone, and Liam being, just like you said, and here I thought you were shy, this whole thing, but we haven't seen her be shy.
Yeah.
This hasn't come up once. And so this is a really important lesson for character development of, you do not establish a character by telling us repeatedly what they are. That's not how that works. And it will make it feel forced, and it will make it sort of like, because if she had only said that she was introverted, I would have believed that. I would
totally.
Because she doesn't want to have a party. She likes to hang out with her roommate, but she doesn't want to go out and, like, do stuff. She likes to read. She appreciates solitude. So if we would have just stopped at introvert, I would have been totally like, no questions. But there's this aspect of being shy, and so if you keep reiterating that a character is something, so you have other people narrate it, and you have them say it, and then you like narrate it over and over again, but we don't see them being that thing on the page, it's gonna feel like it doesn't belong. And that's really important, because I think that's a mistake that early or like newer writers will make, where they're trying to get across who a character is. And so instead of letting us see that in action, letting us see it in the way they behave in circumstances, and instead over relying on narrating it, we're not going to believe it. Because you can tell me a dozen times over, but what I see on the page contradicts that directly. And so that makes it, and so then it's not even really an important detail, because we don't see her being shy anywhere, because it's only her and Liam and mostly people that she knows. So it's not even a relevant detail anyway. So those are some things I think that, like, the reason this is important to talk about is to not fall into that trap when you're writing your own characters, because you show characters by the way they behave in situations, in actual, like, in not just in word but in deed, right, in action, how they are behaving. And I think that, like, that finally clicked for me while you were kind of talking through Tru as a character.
But I will say that this is one of those moments where I feel like people just think, oh, I'm going to write a romance, and that is just easy. This is the part of it that's not the easy part. Like, we really are diving into personal development, how people change, how people deal with grief, how people deal with circumstances, right? You are essentially mapping out how someone goes from being not well to thriving, or to barely surviving to thriving. And there's a whole bunch of steps in between that, which was one of my that was one of my biggest challenges as a writer in the beginning, because all I knew was happy, mad, sad, right? Like, any of the other stuff, I did not know. So I had to really be intentional about studying them. And this is where things like learning archetypes and why those archetypes are important and how they work together and how you pick them and how do you get someone to move from this space to this space and what part of those are, how do you write it on the page and what do you need to show and what are the things that they need to encounter. And I think those are all things that you learn over time. But, continuing to say it over and over again, which is probably do the opposite. And I don't even really feel like it was necessary. I think her just being, listen, who's not shy around a hot guy, right? Like, I mean, even the most, unless she's like, I'm hotter, you know what I'm saying, or whatever.
Oh, man, if you bring that energy, we have a different conversation that I badly want to have with you of like, tell me your secret. But mostly.
And so I think that's normal. I do find that I did love the fact that where she's saying, I'm shy, but Lim has these little moments of epiphany of like, well, I kind of had somebody do the same to me. She was like, you did? He was like, yeah, but if you take away this and this and this and this and this, I'm like, well, that's a no, you did it. But, but you know what? He's Lim. But I think, with that said, with her, I think overall, like I did love it. I do think that there were times that it was overdone like this, like, I don't know, it was just doing too much for me. That's the only way I can say it. But I do think that again, the bridge, which I could talk about more in the end, was sort of how they became them. Mm-hmm. And how it sort of smoothed out a lot of those rocky places. And I would say lastly too, that, understanding the type of character that you want to create and how that character is usually postured in your genre. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes people can think like, oh, God, this has been done before. And I would say, instead of saying this has been done before, I would say, if this has been done before and it's done often, why?
Yeah.
Why is it that you keep saying that? And now you can do a spin on that, right? But there's a reason why, because you are aiming for her to be relatable.
Yeah. Right?
You're aiming for her to be relatable to your readers so that they can feel comfortable with placing themselves in her body as we, explore this story through a first person narrative. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's so important. But yeah, I mean, I like her, really wanted to love her, but I like her enough.
Yeah. And I don't think I don't think she was ever just like, I'm so over it. Like it was not anything like that. It was just some of those like little things that, undermine just your point. Like, it's like, I like her. But ideally we want to love that because we're hanging out with them, and especially we're all in her point of view, so like we really want to like lock in, right? And so just kind of knowing those things that are like, what would take me from like her to love her, and those are helpful things to kind of look for. But yeah, she's not like, it's not like you can't stand being around her.
Well, no, can I just say something about that too, because I just thought of a good example, because I was trying to think of an example. I did not like how she wanted him to behave a certain way when his life was in danger. No.
Yeah.
No.
That's a weird time to be like, you should. Like.
Right. Sit on your soapbox. Actually, nah. No, ma'am. Not gonna do it. Well, he's little alert. Listen, if you coming for me, listen, you've signed up for it. This is what I would say. You came for me. I'm coming back. Self-defense, whatever you want to say. And I just felt like that was just like not consistent. I mean, especially for the reason why she was going after this law degree in the first place, right? It was about disparity, right? It's about the imbalance of power. Granted, Lim was more powerful in that situation. So does that mean you sit like a sitting duck and he could keep attempting after your life? That was so unrealistic to me.
Yeah.
And so anyways, I mean, and I get why, right? She's doing it for a friend. But at the same time, is he really your friend right now?
Listen.
Showing his whole entire tail?
Yeah, I was like, I think you should let him have it, but okay. Like, if you want to. Okay.
So that was one of those examples like, girl, you doing too much. Now, and if you say the first time because you felt like there was an imbalance, dude kept coming. You know what? You keep coming. I'm going to give you exactly what you want.
Yeah.
And then some. You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Don't come for me unless I send for you. Okay.
Listen, and he wanted it. He kept coming, which worked out in the end, the end of the grand scheme of thing of the series. But still, I think, yeah. So that was one of those examples. Like, okay, you're doing too much.
Yeah.
Like that isn't even realistic anywhere. And then, because I'm on the soapbox, and the fact that you know this is what this man does. It's like, in some ways, I feel like that's almost like low-key disrespectful. Like, okay, like if you're smart, if someone is in this seat of authority and power and they let people run all over them, then what?
Yeah.
Everybody in trouble. Like everybody, like to me, that just doesn't seem very smart for you to be a smart person. But, you know, it's not my character.
I love that we unwittingly unlocked Dana, like the thing. So, you know, when we talked about the book at first, like it was kind of almost even on the like the previous series, the Janet Ivanovich series.
Yeah.
I was a little bit like, oh my God, like I got a little bit like up in arms about some specific things, especially off the recording. I love that we tapped into the thing that Dana was like, hold on a minute. Okay. No. Like, I just love that because this is probably the first time that in a story we've knocked on something that you like just annoyed the bejesus out of you, that just made you like, oh no. And then like got you ranting on it.
Here's why. Here's the other part. I think that this is one of those parts, again, y'all. This is why, like, on everything, why I'm creating this course, right? Or my program, is because in romance, you have resources that are either about the external or they're about the internal. They're not about both. And having both is what helps you from this kind of stuff. You keep doing the same stupid stuff. Oh, she not stupid, y'all, but y'all get what I'm saying. That she keeps doing this asinine stuff because there's nothing else to do. You keep having the same fight over and over again because there's nothing else to do. You just have this dude throwing pebbles at a Goliath. You don't got nothing else to do, right? And so this is why you need both. You got to have the internal and the external. Now, this shows you that you can have a whole complete story that gets a little wobbly on one and still overall works out well. But why? Why, like, go ahead and just put that little bit of extra into it. Put a little elbow grease in it.
Yeah.
And it'll work out. But yeah, that's the thing about, I mean, I like Tru, but I didn't love Tru. I did like her, though.
So, but you did love Liam. So before we wrap this episode, we definitely need to talk about Liam, and maybe we can kind of just springboard that into how that created them as a couple, right? Because I do think that, you know, the nice thing about Liam is that he did bring out, like, where Tru, she could be annoying at times about certain things, but there was an aspect where he kind of pulled something out of her that that was maybe buried under other things, that just sort of brought a little bit more of like her sort of true self out. So tell me a little bit about why we love Liam, what makes him a compelling main male character, and you know, this sort of half morally gray thing going on. Tell me about Liam. Tell me about him.
I think he is more than he is. I mean, if you are the mafia pope, then you are
he's a little morally gray.
Girl, listen, he is in there. He's in there like swimwear. But the thing that I probably like the most about Liam, other than the fact that I like the audiobook, and we're gonna just leave it at that, is
I have nothing to. I would just to say the audiobook narrator, the male narrator, did a great job, and he has a great voice. Just to make it very clear where I stand on the audiobook.
Okay. So, I think he is probably like the quintessential alpha male, right? Of like, when you talk about in romance, of like I do. This is how I move in the world, and the world moves around him, right? And it's almost like it's because, except for the pebble thrower, I say what I mean and I mean what I say, except when it comes to her. And that's when it's like, ooh, that's when people think they can reform a bad boy. Y'all, I like my bad boys in books, not in life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
that's the fantasy, right? It's like,
exactly.
I can fix him.
I can fix him. I'm the one. Like, now, here's the thing that makes this book a little bit low key of like the twist of like most of these stories, when it truly is a morally great character, if you were talking about structure, he would be an anti-heroic character, right? But in this story, he wasn't, right? Because how the end turns out. And I think that sort of crossed signals. That was a writer thing versus the actual character thing. But why he was doing it, I think that was such a good spin. And I think, again, it's one to pacify, if you will, the people who are on the fence about whether they want to read dark romance. Because if he's doing a bad thing for the right reasons, he's a Robin Hood, not a thug. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And listen, all the stuff Glenn is doing, baby, he is not a Robin Hood. Now, he's doing some stuff. He's doing it for the reasons he's doing it. And he's doing it for, y'all, we can't give it away. But do you get what I'm saying? And so I think that's one of the ways where that being on the fence sort of blurs the line of a true sort of line in the sand for dark romance. I also feel like he has the protectiveness, the fact that not only does he save her, I mean, you see it over and over again in the hospital with the doctors, with the police officers. When Lim was a consummate umbrella, and there is no rain that will touch Truby, okay? He is going to ensure, down to the fact of giving her artesian water in the refrigerator and all the pistachio ice cream her poor little heart can take care, and making sure she had, fresh fruits and vegetables. But the point is, so I think that he is that thing of why people want that type of a character or that type of a mate. That if anything that concerns her is going to be handled.
Yeah.
Now, what made him even better is the fact that if you talk about the moral compass or why and what landed him here, that is what put him over the top for me. That there was a reason. There wasn't just, it's sort of like, I always say, I love antagonists that are the types of characters that they didn't just wake up feeling like being bad today, right? That there was really some true life-altering, soul-shifting event that put him on this trajectory. And it was to the point that even he thought he was unlovable.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's really getting at that, like, it's not just, and this is where I think like the core of maybe the loved alpha male or like morally gray character is it's almost like the way, just like you said, the way you craft a good antagonist, right? Where you give them a reason to be the way that they are, but you also show them caring about something or someone deeply, and it shifts the way that we feel about them. And then, you know, when we're looking at romance and we look at someone who understands themselves in a certain way, and this drives the way they behave. So to your point, him feeling like he is unlovable because of who he has had to become. Now you're creating the opportunity to see the softer side of a strong, principled person. And that's a part of the fantasy, is being able to bring, not only being under the protection of a principled, ultra powerful person, but to be able to bring out that soft side of them. And it leaves them kind of a little bit of room even for their own small growth arc of letting themselves be loved.
I would say yes. I would say both and. I think it's that, but it is the protectiveness, right? Because at the end of the day, when you think about the scope of, go back to our original training of like Maslow's hierarchy, right? It goes back to the core.
Yeah, that
need.
bottom, like at the bottom of everything, you can't have the top without the bottom in place.
Exactly.
For sure.
And when you talk about universal fantasies and fantasies, because I always see romance as a fantasy, the fantasy of a romance is the fact that most people feel like I'm out here YOLO.
Yep.
I'm out here. I'm out here on my own, and nobody. If I can't do it, nobody's gonna do it. Yep. And so to have this character be like, no, you're not going to be sitting in the hospital by yourself, fading in and out without somebody looking out for you. No, you're not going to be, because you don't have the money, not be able to eat. Or, you know what I mean? Like, most people want somebody. And it's not in the... I think it's not in the way that most people on the outside of romance would perceive it, but on the inside of romance, looking out, it's the thing that we all want. Security.
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And so that's what he embodies. Now, the fact that all of the other isms about her that she does stumble over, because if people really knew, they would think she's weirder. They would think she's as weirder, if not weirder, than what they think she already is. And know it's true. He has the same thing.
Yeah.
And to him, it's adorable, right? Like, that just makes it like, oh, it's like the person that gets the ugly dog. It's like, oh, look at you, bless your heart. So I think that's a part of it. And the fact that he comes from a place where, like, life made him that way. And instead of him becoming who he was from victimhood, he became it out of, I'm the wolf.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, because so we're talking about the fantasy, right?
Yeah.
No girl is swooning over a guy who's like, oh, the world did me wrong, and now it's hard. Like, listen, okay? Ladies have met enough of those guys.
Yeah.
So the ones that we fantasize about are not those guys, right? Like and so when we're thinking about creating that fantasy, we're looking at someone who has been, it was particularly when we're looking at like the morally gray character, someone who has been dealt a bad hand and who turned it around for themselves and who took control of a situation. And I think that the other thing that really adds to what makes Liam a lovable, like, main male character is that he's principled, right? So he's not just like some bad guy, but he's deeply principled in the way that he approaches his illegal activities and why he's doing what he's doing. And I think that adds sort of a stature to his character so that he can be morally gray and not just be like, I woke up and decided I was gonna be bad, like, I'm just gonna get out there and do bad stuff.
But this is where there's the rub, right? Because that's actually not dark romance, right? The point of them being morally gray is that they're morally gray.
Okay, so this is where we're deviating from. So, like, maybe it's a lovable aspect in Liam, and it's, it makes him interesting as a character, but in dark romance, that's not the kind of guy that we're supposed to have.
Exactly, because usually he doesn't want to change. Now, what he has then instead is a set of rules that he abides by. Right, so it becomes his own moral compass. So usually what will happen is that they have their own set of rules. Like, we always do this, we always protect this. We don't do anything against women. We don't do anything against children. But we will, if you're in urban romance, it'd be like, we do sell drugs, or we do deal with laundering, or we deal with crooked people because I'm more crooked than you're crooked, or whatever. Yeah. But they usually have lines, and what usually happens is those lines are crossed for her. Yeah. That the reason why people follow him, the reason why people listen to him is because he has this set of rules. It kind of makes you think of, if you've ever seen like Transporter, right? The movie, you've never seen Transporter?
Mm-mm. Oh my God, Rachel. I don't even recognize the title.
Listen. Oh my God, you've never, Rachel, are you my friend? Let me see.
I did. You've never mentioned this movie in any
One
conversation
of my favorite
with me.
movies of all time. Okay, Vin Diesel, okay. Fast and Furious. Okay,
I know
Have
you.
you
I know
seen-
you love some Vin Diesel and some Fast and Furious. I know you
my
love these movies. I have not
God.
seen that particular movie. I have not seen
Okay.
Transporter.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you about both. Just not the movies, but just this is if you ever watch a movie and you want to see it. It's so in Transporter. In Transporter is Jason Statham. Love Jason Statham. Jason Statham, and he's a guy who he is a transporter. He picks up stuff. You don't tell him what's in it. You pay him exactly what you're going to pay him. He does not take more even if you try to bribe him. And he only does the route that he tells you. He does not deviate. And he lives by, I'm saying the rules wrong, but he lives by these 3 rules. He lives by the rules. He dies by the rules. You don't share names. You don't tell him what's in the package. You don't whatever. So therefore, what the stuff breaks when he breaks those rules, right? And so this is what usually happens when you have a true dark romance. That you usually in a real dark romance, they are bad. Like they are bad. They are bad just because they want to be bad, right? But there's usually something about him that makes him different. Now, what I love here and that sometimes others do, and I think it's just a nice touch, and it means that you're not just writing it just to write a dark romance, would be that something made him that way, and truly the aspect of him is, if you will, his representative. It's a sense of protection. But usually in a true dark romance, they have no desire to leave.
Yeah.
They have no desire to leave the organized crime. Maybe it's because it's for their family. It's what we do, whatever. But that is one of those deviations. And this is a deviation without us giving a spoiler. But I feel like another day, another episode, and another time, it would be like, is that the choice you want to make? And I think that's why I think this was a toe dip in to see how readers would respond, because I think that was a real choice and it was good here, but I think it's not in alignment with genre expectations. Sure. And that's why I wouldn't call it another one of the reasons why I wouldn't call it a dark romance.
Yeah.
But it's close. It's adjacent, but it's not all the way over. And those are some of those things, like the more that you read, there's a lot of more dubious aspects to dark romance. Things like consent, the fact that there's a legal activity that's accepted. But the one of the true lines that I would say when it comes to dark romance, and we'll probably talk about this, I think we talk about it in the overview, which is the fact that it makes you question, and I think this story did it well, which is, if this is bad, and you benefit from it, do you still think it's bad, right? That's where a moral aspect, it causes you to question that moral aspect. And that's another one of those hallmark aspects of a dark romance. And here, it's not as, kind of, but not really. But I know in the other book in the series it does. But that's another one of those things. Anyway, but the point is, so them together, I think the fact that they had so many similarities, like they have a strong bond based on them being the same or similar, right? The fact that they had a large family background, the fact that they both had, without giving anything away, like things that happened in their family group that really shaped and molded who they are today, to the point where they can understand each other's pain without fully expressing or explaining that pain. And I think that is a great representation of sort of that fated mate, soulmate. Fate brought them together, sort of couple. And then even down to those quirks, like the moment where she was like, that she was shot by her cousin named Billy Bob or whatever.
Yeah.
That is this random fact. And he was like, well, that kind of happened to me,
Yeah.
The last part, I will even say that there are some aspects that I know that you've mentioned that I find actual through lines there. Things about like her background. It actually mirrors his background, right? To show it was one of those deciding factors for Liam, and even when it had Declan sort of lifting his brow, that there were similarities to the point where Declan had to keep saying, this doesn't mean anything. But if you think about Liam, who gives up so much to have a similarity, it's almost like being able to reclaim that. part of himself that he's lost to do this thing that he's doing, right? Y'all, we're trying to dance around.
Yeah.
And so I like those parts. I like when authors find ways to weave those things in. Some, I think there was a lot of stretches here, but I think you accept the stretches because the other ones land so well. And so.
Yeah, and I think that makes, and that's why I think like certain ones were stretches for me, but I understood these, like where she was finding overlap for two people who have had fundamentally different lives, right? And it's interesting to kind of see, because I was thinking about Liam and him being the principal, sort of we'll say a principled villain, that is right on that cusp. Like I would say that's like the line between like dark romance and not dark romance, but it didn't cross over, right? Over into dark romance, but he sat right on that line, which goes to that dipping your toe into it, because we do have someone who is involved in illegal activity, but who has a strong compass and a strong personal code that dictates the way that he handles his illegal activities. And so that's like, so you can see like it, as though there were a bolded line between dark romance and not dark romance, and where it's sitting right next to it, but doesn't cross over into it because of your point of the, in a dark romance, the main male lead is like, this is what I do. I'm not looking for a change. Like, this is just the way that it is, So really interesting to see the way that Liam is a good enough main male character, and Liam and Tru are good enough together, that where our conversation started with aspects of Tru that we weren't quite sold on, that it still carried the rest of the book through in a way that, happily ever after and, romance and our couple together, that it sort of like just helped lift up some of the elements that maybe otherwise would have felt like they sagged a little bit.
I agree. And I think the aspects too, that the relationship in the end, and this will be in romance in general, right, that represents a thing that they've always yearned for, right? I think it's very interesting if you go back and look at Tru. She loves her father, but Tru's dad.
Yeah.
And the difference between Tru's dad and Lim.
Yeah.
Right? And the difference between Tru's dad and Lim and her ex, right? And you sort of just like look at that. And this is why I think it's so important to really, 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 really give time and thought to your characters.
Yeah.
Like we do in general, but I think in romance it's even more important because you're creating a third entity between them.
Right.
And it should be sort of this melting of them both. And if you do it right, it makes it feel like, just like now, like, yeah, there's some bumps, but I'm here for it. I'm team Liam and Tru, right? And I can listen to and read this. I can listen to the story over and over again. When I just want something, I will put it on. Put it on. I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, overall, I think they're strong characters. I think it's a great representation of having those things and elements that connect them that are outside of their personal doing, that you couldn't have ever thought of that. I think it's also this thing, a great representation of the aspects of you that you try to hide being seen, even without it being intentional. And I think that's really what Tru gave to Liam. That they want to be a different person to have her. That was the quintessential, like, biggest part of this story. Like, that he wanted to be a different person to have her. Yeah. And again, that's part of the fantasy. He's willing to do whatever to be with her. Yeah. And he did. He did the whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that, again, it's just, even if you're not a romance reader, understanding what romance is and why it is and what is actually got, like, it helps you understand, it helps you see the genre appropriately rather than just like bodice ripping or hunky men or like, where if we start to verge into dark romance and it's like, oh, these are not relational dynamics that are like healthy in nature. But that's not what it's about, right? And so understanding what's operating behind it, which if you are writing romance, whether you're writing romance or whether you're writing a romantic subplot, understanding what's behind it helps you to do it with intention and to do it wisely and to do it effectively, because you know what it is that people are looking for behind the trope, behind the six-pack, whatever that thing is. And so I think it's really... it's important to, when you're looking at any kind of genre fiction, look at what's behind it. It's the same thing with crime. Murder, that's not fun. People are looking for a puzzle, not a murder. And they're also looking for justice. Those are things that, like, do they always happen in real life? No, but they're the things that we crave to see. So we go to these stories for that experience. It's the same kind of thing of understanding the genre that you're writing in so that you can move within that genre intentionally.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. And sometimes a six-pack is just a six-pack too. We want that too.
Sometimes we just want a hot guy. And that's okay too.
And we'll take our squishiness in real life.
All right. Oh boy, on that note. Thank you everyone for joining us for this conversation about characters, about Liam and Tru, and why we love a six-pack. Thank you for listening. So next week we will be back with our editor's takes and our takeaways from this story. If you will, make sure that you like this video. If you're watching the video, you leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or whatever your favorite podcasting platform is. Make sure you subscribe so that you always know when new episodes are coming out, and leave comments. Let us know, did you like Liam? Did you find Tru inconsistent? Do you have questions about a story like this? Because we have those occasional kind of bonus episodes that go out where we would love to answer your questions about any of the books that we've covered or the topics that we've covered. So like I said, thank you so much for listening. We will be back next week with our editor's takes to wrap up Beautifully Cruel by J.T. Geissinger. But until then, happy writing.